Welcome back to the Republic of Arsenal, live again, a special edition, a Europa League edition. This one is going to be a bit of a crazy one. I've got a couple of pretty upset Arsenal fans here, and I've got a very, very special guest as well, representing Slavia Prague, who I will introduce now momentarily. That game last night, anyone who watched, I'm lost for words. I know I'm saying I'm lost for words. I did record a live video, and I managed to be lost for words for 40 minutes. So some words did manage to come out. There's so much to talk about, so much to discuss. Plenty of bad. There's I guess there's probably a few positives, but look, this is going to be probably a bit of a therapy session. Unfortunately, we're missing the resident therapist Farhan tonight. So yeah, lads, look, I might have to be the therapist tonight. I will do my best, but I'll introduce the Arsenal guys first, who are definitely in need of a bit of therapy. So first of all, Scott from the Red Cannon. Scott, how you doing?
Tired, stressed, decided I'm done with football. But not too good. I've simmered down as the day's gone on, but as my match reaction video this afternoon showed, there was a lot of expletives. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You're definitely not alone on that. And I know we got a man here who I don't know, Sulz. Are you going to be fired up? Is this going to be fired up Sulz, or is this going to be a different version of Sulz? But for anyone who knows, this is basically my co-host Sulz, who's back again. So Sulz, not that you need any introduction, but how are you feeling tonight?
I'm actually all right. I'm going to be one of the only, I think, Arsenal fans who's going to look at this objectively now. I've had enough time to rage at my wall. I've been screaming at the mirror, I've done my therapy of myself. I think I've spoken, this is like my 4th stream today. So I've pretty much got it all out of my system. I've looked at it at every angle, from a tactical standpoint, from a player standpoint, what the manager could have done. So Anthony, you could be the angry one. I'm actually just emotionalness. Like, I have no emotions at all at the minute. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to say. But I guess when you ask the questions, I'll start to pick it up.
Yeah, look, it's definitely helpful, as I found last night. I'm sure Scott and Sulz, you were both feeling pretty upset, pissed off. There's plenty of words we can use for the emotions we were feeling, but definitely it is therapeutic to sit down and talk about it. And again, this is why I tend to recommend, not recording straight after a game, because it is definitely beneficial to sit back and kind of process it and take it all in, and you definitely have a different outlook. So in terms of being the angry one tonight, so I don't know, I find it hard not to be the one that's smiling regardless of what's going on. I think it's because I'm just emotionally broken from all the years of supporting Arsenal, that I'm dead on the inside. I'm smiling on the outside. I'm absolutely dead on the inside. I don't know what else to do anymore. Look, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So sometimes you just have to laugh. But as I said, very, very special guest here tonight. Tried this a couple of days ago. We tried to get Jonathan on. Unfortunately, as is kind of the theme of this show at times, we had a couple of technical issues. So unfortunately, we couldn't get it done just before the game. But I'm really, really happy we could get Jonathan on here tonight to break down what happened in the first leg. So Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to finally be on the show. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes right technically, and we can have a good chat. I can't promise to be your therapist, obviously. As a Slavia coach, that's not why I'm here. I'm actually a Stoke City fan as well, so you probably don't want to hear that, but I'm a Stoke City fan. So for me, I don't really have any allegiances. I don't really have any allegiances to Arsenal. I'm willing to kind of sit here and to chat to you guys, and I think it was obviously a really interesting game from a neutral point of view. and it was, had its drama and it had plenty of talking points. So looking forward to getting into those talking points.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we might leave the Stoke City aspect of it out of this for a while. Maybe for the second review, if Arsenal go through, maybe we might bring up Stoke in that one, but we might leave that out for tonight. We're already feeling a little bit rough as it is. We don't need to bring up any Stoke or Tony Pulis or anything like that at the moment. But yeah, Jonathan, as I said, it is great to have you here. And look, there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to kind of ask you leading up to the game, and I think some of the stuff is definitely still relevant. But before we get into the game, I'd just like to kind of ask you a couple of questions, like get your background, and because I think it's a really interesting story, and especially for people that are watching. But for people that don't know, you are actually an employee of Arsenal's opposition, Slavia Prague. You are a coach at Slavia. So, can you just give us a breakdown of, first and foremost, how you got into, football coaching, and kind of the story of how you managed to make it all the way over to the Czech Republic?
Yeah, I think it's a long story. It started about 11 years ago. I don't really want to go. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. But basically, I used to be a teacher actually in the UK. So I graduated as a teacher in Wales. In Cardiff. It was like 2010, I think. And then I got a teaching job out in China. So I decided to go out to China, did some teaching, taught some English out there for 3 years. I met a Taiwanese girl. I moved to Taiwan. That's when I first really got into coaching. So I got myself a coaching job out there, coaching for like an international football academy. But it was like amateur football. So I learned the basics there, and then I wanted to move back to Europe to be closer to my family, and also I wanted to get into professional football. It's an ambition of mine, or it was an ambition of mine to get into professional football. So I decided to make the move, and Prague just seemed like a great place to be. So I set myself a goal of maybe 3 or 4 years of getting in at somewhere like Slavia, and I just got really fortunate. Really, I got to know a contact at Slavia, and then we sent some emails and ended up getting an interview, and it kind of snowballed from there. That was like 4 years ago, three or 4 years ago. So and now I'm here. I'm working in the academy, but I do a little bit of English work, I guess, in Slavia as a club. So I'll do like a little bit of proofreading. So although I don't write the club statements, I do a little bit of proofreading of those statements, just to kind of tidy them up a little bit. And then, I'll teach a little bit of English to my colleagues. I'll coach football sessions on the pitch in English to our players. And then anything else really that needs doing in English, I'll get in there and help out. So and that's pretty much my role in Slavia at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. Always really, really interested to find out how people get into certain clubs and that, especially when you're not from there. You're Welsh and that, and then finding your way all the way over. And you're also a head coach of a relatively new team called the Prague Raptors. So again, tell us about kind of how that gig came about.
Yeah, actually, Prague Raptors is really interesting story. So I think it was around 3 years ago we set the club up. I was looking for a coaching job to kind of supplement my income when I first arrived to Prague. So put my CV on one of these Facebook groups, and a guy contacted me. He had his son in like a local academy here, but he's a British guy. He's from Leeds, and he contacted me, and he gave me a little bit of advice and pointed me in that direction of that academy. And we had a little bit of a chat, and he said, well, there is this academy, but on the other side, I'm thinking of creating my own football club here. So I thought, well, obviously that's quite interesting. So if you get around to it, I'm interested. And then a few months later, he contacted me and he said, well, that football team, like we're gonna create it. So we had a meeting in a pub with, I think it was like 4 or 5 guys from different countries, and we decided we were going to make a football club. And then I remember on the way home, me and his name's Daz. Me and Daz were kind of chatting, sending messages, and then he asked me if I wanted to be the head coach. So I thought, as a coach, you very rarely get the opportunity to kind of start with a blank canvas at a football team. So I found that to be quite an exciting prospect, and he's given me the football side of things for to build at the club. So that was around 3 years ago, and now we've got 2 teams. We've got an A team and a B team for the men. We've also got a women's team as well, and we've got, I think it's 50 nationalities now at the club. So obviously, in Czech Republic, that's quite rare. We're quite different in how we operate. We do lots of charity work with the community. We also support different charities in Africa and throughout the world. And we're really trying not just to be good at football and obviously play nice football. And as a coach, I take that as a point of pride. I want my teams to play attacking, attractive football, but also we try to make a difference in the community, and we're trying to be a positive influence, using football as that influence to help people around the world. So we're right now we're 8th division in Czech football, which sounds like a long way down, but this is only our 3rd season. Obviously last season was cancelled because of coronavirus, so we're heading for successive promotions. So we're trying to kind of get up to the top as quickly as possible. It's quite an exciting project, and something we're really proud of so far.
Yeah, that sounds like a really, really exciting project. And if you're looking for a couple of players, definitely don't contact me, Sulz or Scott, because no, I don't think we'd be much use. But
whoa. Talk for yourself, mate. Talk for yourself.
I knew that would get Sulz biting. No, Sulz is pretty high level, aren't you, Sulz? You can still do it.
Not anymore. Not after the pandemic. No, I believed too much.
100%.
Once I cut it out, maybe.
Haven't we all?
Yeah.
I did take a look at the the website and that. So no, it looks like there's really, really good things going on there. And I have to say, whoever designs the kits, they're doing a serious job, because for anyone who hasn't seen the Prague Raptors kits, there's some serious kits. I only wish I knew someone from the club that might send one over. And I'll have to.
I can sort you out, man. Like the thing is with Daz as well, the president, is we're really lucky because he's got his own digital marketing company. So he handles all the stuff off the pitch, and this is why we look so professional off the pitch on social media and stuff. And obviously with my background in coaching, I do the football stuff. So yeah, we're just really lucky that we've got expertise in from the start, really. But yeah, Daz does a great job, like really, really good.
Yeah, 100%. And like that, for anyone that is watching and that, like, definitely do check them out. The Prague Raptors. It's, as you said, a really, really cool project. It's always good to see something start grassroots and make its way up. As you said, back-to-back promotions. So definitely be a cool team to follow, and definitely we'll be keeping an eye. Look. Just before we get into the game itself, and I'm going to bring Scott and Sulz in a little bit more. As I said, there was a lot that I wanted to kind of pick your brain about the first time that we didn't get around to. So I apologise to the 2 lads for kind of waiting a little bit. I'm sure you're absolutely dying to talk about Arsenal. I'm sure absolutely cannot wait. But look, just before we get into it, just like a couple of things I just want to get out of the way. And I guess, like, as I said before, it's something that, it became kind of the theme of this tie before the game was even played, due to what went on in the Rangers game between Kudela and Glenn Kamara, and that it's not something that, we can kind of just brush under the carpet and pretend never happened. And I know sometimes it's not easy to talk about these things, and I know a lot of people find it easier just to kind of leave it left unsaid, but we've kind of touched on bits and pieces before. And again, look, Jonathan, I'm not going to put you on the spot or anything like that. I'm not looking for you to be like, you're a spokesperson for Slavia or whatever. But just the fact that, you are an employee of the club, you're living there, you're working there every single day. I'd just like to kind of get your perspective of kind of Slavia as a club, their kind of values and that, because I know, and I'm sure that the two lads here will agree, and maybe some guys in the chats, I know what it's like as an Arsenal fan to kind of be, in a certain sense, painted with a certain brush. Certain media outlets that I'm sure we all know of. And I'm not having a dig or anything at anybody, but certain things are said, and it becomes representative of Arsenal fans. A certain person will say something or react a certain way to something. It catches media attention, and suddenly all Arsenal fans are like this. We're all reactionary. We all feel this way. We're all manager out. We're all manager in. We're all, one person says something, one person does something, and we all come under fire for it. Again, look, I'm old enough at this stage. I'd like to think I'm wise enough to know that, the allegations of what one player said to another, I know is not representative of a whole group and a whole team. And we did see after the game a section of the fan base, the Slavia fans, came out, and there was a banner. And again, look, there's sections of every single fan base that will paint a bad light for the rest of us, and 5, 6, 10 people don't represent the other. The 60,000 people that are in there. You hear a couple of, I know in the case of Nelson Semedo, Lukaku, there was racist chants again by a section of the fan base. I'm not saying the whole fan base, but again, right now, the picture that's kind of been painted of Slavia in the media, which I know you could probably understand to an extent, it's not a very good one. And the whole racism thing has really been brought to the head coming into this game. But yeah, as I said, I'd like to sort of, from your point of view, especially because you're, an outsider coming into this community, at Slavia, what are the club like, and what do they represent, and their kind of values, and what do you think their feeling is, with regard to these allegations, and how serious they are taking them?
Well, I think the first thing to say, it's obviously a delicate topic, as you said, and I have to be very careful about not only what I say, but this conversation. Obviously, it's not as simple as me, giving an opinion, and I obviously have to think about the consequences of that. I'm not brushing that away. I think it's obviously an important point to talk about.
I don't want you to say anything. Like, as I did say, look, I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I understand you are an employee of the club. So, look, I'm not looking for you to say anything that's going to get you in any trouble. Look, you can literally, if there's anything you don't want to say, of course, I completely understand. As I said, I don't want to put you on the spot here. Again, like I said, just a general feel of, as I said, I'm sure, what's out in the media isn't fully reflective of, what you see on a day-to-day. And I'm sure you see the good of, the community and the club, and that isn't out there. So, like I said, I just kind of like to sort of get your feeling on how the club actually is. Yeah.
So, I mean, the first thing for me to say, really, from my perspective, is that the images that have been or the way that Slavia has been portrayed in the British press especially, is absolutely not my experience of the club at all, in no way. So, obviously, in terms of Czech Republic, in terms of Czech football, I think that it's clear to everybody in Czech football and in the country that there is an issue with racism, and there is an issue to be addressed. I don't think that's controversial. I don't think that's I'm not what's the word? I'm not revealing any big secrets in saying that. I don't think that that's anything to be denied or to be brushed under the carpet. So, in terms of the Czech Republic itself, and in terms of Czech football, I do think that there are big steps to be taken on that front. However, in terms of Slavia's position within this, I always think of Slavia as being a very progressive part of Czech society and Czech football in general. And the reason that I say that is, the fact that I'm working at the club. I'm obviously a British coach. I think there are only 2 or 3 British coaches working in Czech Republic that I'm aware of, or non-Czech or non-Slovakian coaches. So the fact that they've accepted me, and Slavia is very much my family, my football family. So the fact that they've welcomed me and they've accepted me into their kind of group and into their club, I think that speaks volumes. When you look, not just on a personal level, but when you look at the team that we have, we're a multicultural, multinational team. As you saw last night, we've got players from Nigeria, Senegal, Ivory Coast. So it's not as if, there's a reason why these players want to play for our football club. If there was an element of racism, or, if the club itself was racist, we wouldn't have black players playing for Slavia Prague. So I think that speaks volumes. I think that, I have heard instances in Czech football of racism, and as I said, it is a problem. But my experience of Slavia is nothing but positive, really. And on a personal level, it's been a very, very difficult 2 or 3 weeks, because you see all the comments written on social media, and for me, the people at the club are my family. I work with them every day. I know them very, very well. And so to read some of the comments, quite frankly, is, some of them they're disgusting, really. And that's one of the things that's really kind of hurt me, is obviously reading the comments on social media, and both sides, tearing chunks out of each other, both sides almost putting the football to one side and just trying to kind of one-upmanship, this kind of, trying to get back at each other, trying to like call each other out on stuff. And for me, that's not what football is about, and it's what football's never been about. So I do feel that probably on both sides there needs to be a bit of a cooling period, and ultimately it does depend on the UEFA investigation, as to what actually happened. In terms of the club itself, like, we have very little option but to back our player. If he denies those allegations, we can't then, we can't apologise for something that he says that he hasn't done. So he's a member of our club, and so in that respect, it's not that we don't respect or don't care about the idea of racism. It's the fact that our player has denied it, and he's our player, so we back our player. And there's not really a lot the club can do until the UEFA investigation is complete. And after that investigation is complete, then everyone will know the truth, hopefully, and hopefully justice will be served, on either side. So it's just a matter of cooling things down and waiting for the outcome of the investigation.
Yeah, no, and look, I do appreciate, as I said, you're in a bit of an awkward position, and as I just want to stress to everybody, you are an employee of the club, and I completely understand you have to be careful, and yeah, you work with these people day to day, so you have a better view of what actually goes on, and as I did say, it is easy for one individual or a group of individuals to kind of turn everybody's feeling towards everything else. It would be the same, if an Arsenal player did the same, and we all know what we are and what we stand for, but we'd all become representative of one person's actions if it turns out to be true. I just see a comment there. So just before we move on, Sophie is just asking why Slavia Prague didn't take the knee. And do you have any information, or can you disclose information on what the stance was behind not taking the knee? I did notice it myself, but to be honest, I didn't really pick up on the commentary, or I didn't actually really look into it, to be honest. I'm not sure if Scott or Sulz, if you know.
No, I'll be honest with you. I was doing the watch. I didn't even notice. I was just completely oblivious to it, to be honest. But yeah, that's a good point.
I know at the beginning they did where they put the arms. I don't know what you call it on the semi, but yeah. Then obviously when the Arsenal players took the knee, they didn't. I don't know. Look, to be quite honest with you, right? Like it's such a difficult conversation to have, because there's still racism in the Premier League, and we're meant to be a progressive country. Forget about a league, and There's Chelsea recently, like 3, 4, 5 times within the same year being racist. Liverpool as well. And then Liverpool players came out with the Luis Suarez top on. So it's not like we're any better. At the time, yeah, I did react quite, I'd say harshly. I think obviously we need to allow the investigation to take place. And I'm sure the relevant justice will be served, whatever it may be, whether it's innocent, guilty, whatever. I'm sure even Slavia Prague and UEFA will take action that's required. But it's difficult. The problem is, right, now that I'm a bit cooled down, now that I've looked at the situation for what it is, it's very difficult because it's he said, she said. And once you kind of make that allegation, you can't really back off it. As in, Glenn Kamara now has to live and die by the fact that he's now made this into the way he reacted. If he now turns around and goes, by the way, actually, he didn't really say anything, that's going to be so bad, because the way they reacted was shocking if it turns out not to be true. Obviously, we've seen what happened in La Liga as well, for example, with the Diakabi, or however you say his name. And that obviously turned out, well, after the investigation, they've said that they haven't really heard nor seen anything to make enough of a thing to, which is fair enough. I don't know, because for me, it's like, it's happened. You have to talk about it. We have to keep obviously speaking about it in terms of campaigns, obviously no room for racism, kick it out, and then whatever else. I'm not sure what else there is, obviously, with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything. That's all we can do, because individuals are still going to do what they want to do, and that's the only reason why I'm not that fussed, because it is an individual. If I have to say, obviously, if it turns out to be true, it's an individual isolated incident. It wasn't like the team was like starting to make monkey chants and start dancing like monkeys in front of the player or anything. So you do have to look at it like that. You can't. It's like if I said something on this panel that doesn't represent you three, like it represents what I'm saying, or if I said something on my own channel, just because I've been on this channel doesn't mean that you represent that exact same view. So when you do calm down, and once you kind of like look past it, you do start to see it in a different way, because there's so many other players who have then been accepted back into football. John Terry, did some questionable things in my era. You've got Luis Suarez, obviously being a more recent incident of a high-profile player, being racist, and it wasn't even like, oh, he might have been, no, he was racist, like it was proven, he was banned and everything. So it's difficult. I think the only one I have a problem with was the chanting, when the fans chanted, because that's like, you can't get away with that. And for me, I feel like the club didn't respond the way I feel they should have. They kind of passed on blame, but I don't want to beat them down with a stick and everything, because it's difficult. I don't think anyone really truly understands how you, even as someone from a minority, being an Asian and a Muslim, I'm the minority of a minority as well. So I understand it's difficult for even us to respond to it. So I don't blame them. I think with time, people will get it right, because we are starting to see more positive, I shouldn't say positive, but better responses to racism and discrimination as well. We can't just say it's just racism, but even like discriminative, acts against like maybe gay people or people with certain attributes and stuff. And it's getting better. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I am definitely seeing a little bit more being done about it, and a bit more proactiveness from especially football, but in sports in general.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, it's not an easy topic to talk about, but it is definitely important that, I guess it gets highlighted and it is spoken about, and, people kind of, understand and kind of change their mindset and perspective. But we will move on now. We'll get into the game. As much as I don't know if I want to talk about the game now, but we will. And Scott, first of all, I'll get your feeling. What we'll do is we'll just get into the lineups there. I want to get your opinion, first of all, on the Arsenal lineup. A couple of changes in there and a couple of surprises. I think the biggest one, which I suppose came as a bit of a shock. I don't know if it should have been as much of a shock as it was with Aubameyang being dropped to the bench, because I think a lot of us, to be fair, have been kind of calling for that for a couple of weeks. But the fact that it came in such an important fixture, did that one catch you off guard? And was there any other kind of additions or changes in there that you had a bit of issue with?
Yeah, I had quite a bit of issue with it. I said once I got onto my watch along, first thing I went through the lineup, and I had a few issues with it. The first mistake I personally made is when I did my predicted lineup, and it was kind of a predicted stroke what I want to see. I completely disregarded Willian. I completely forgot about him. He was just completely blindsided. And I know somebody come into the chat and said, "Oh, you do realize he's definitely going to play." He was he'd done an interview recently, which I didn't manage to catch, and seeing him on the field yet again, I'm never happy to see it. I've been quite vocal about the fact that I think, as many people, it's been a complete letdown. We're at a point now where there's a good chance he's going to go a whole season as an attacking player without a goal. And ultimately, even the recent assists he's got, some of which were questionable. So my eyes are always drawn. I always, as soon as I see him on the pitch, I'm somewhat disappointed. For me, it's playing with 10 men. Just on the point you made about Lacazette and Aubameyang, I wasn't overly confussed. I think it was the right decision for me. And some may disagree, some may not. But I feel as though with Aubameyang, he's just an out-and-out goal scorer. And if he's scoring goals and he's confident, we've championed him as world class. We've made him our captain. We've put him on high wages, and rightfully so. I mean, there was not many people that were arguing or complaining in the summer when he was on Instagram doing the live. We was all tuned in, and I want to be a legend, and he's thinking of statues and all stuff like that. And unfortunately, he's just in a very, very poor run of form, which I'll accept that. I'll accept that he can have a poor. Players are going to go through bad patches, and we know about his off-field problems, which will impact anybody. Ultimately, we don't know the finer details, but we don't need to know. And I'm not surprised to that he's hitting a bad form. What alarms me more with Aubameyang is I don't think the attitude's right, and specifically for a captain. I mean, if we go back to Tottenham Gate or Traffic Gate, whatever we want to label it as, the reality is I didn't look at when the photos were taken that come out or what, but the reality is there's no excuses to be late. You really want your captain to be the first one in the stadium, in the dressing room, welcoming the boys in. For me, Arteta was right to drop him. But he didn't. The biggest thing with that for me is that Arteta was very strong on making sure that we all knew why he was dropped for the derby. He didn't need to do that. He condemned him, and he kind of stuck his chest out and said, this is why. And the gamble paid off because ultimately we won that game. But I've not seen a reaction from Aubameyang. Since then, I've not seen him when he has been involved. I'm not seeing the drive and the passion. It's almost for me that unless there's something really riding on it, I don't feel like it really means something to him. Last season, we know some would say he almost single-handedly won that FA Cup with his performances in the semis and the final. But there was a medal on the line. There was a trophy at the end of it. There was something to play for. Some players, and I think he is one of these, they need that, we're fighting for the title, we're fighting for a trophy, we're fighting for top four. When there doesn't appear to be a goal that's achievable in sight, his motivation is questionable. And so for me, Lacazette, I think it was fair. It was very 50-50. For me, Lacazette's form hasn't been amazing, but when Laka doesn't score goals, it does feel like he brings a little more to the team. And ultimately, I said on my stream before the game started, I said one-on-one, which ironically ended up happening in the game. If I've got one player one-on-one through on goal, I'll always pick Aubameyang. But somebody made a good point in my stream and said, well, Aubameyang might not have won that ball to actually get the opportunity. Aubameyang might have not been there. So for me, as I say, I think Laka, no problems there. One thing I'm interested to see what your thoughts are, Sulz and Anthony and Jonathan as well, is that I'm not Holding's biggest critic. I think he's an okay squad player. Some really can't stand him and feel like he's just not good enough. And I don't feel like he's the level I would like. But as a squad player, I have no issue. He didn't perform on Saturday. He was given opportunity. What I want to know is what's happened with Mari. Am I missing something really obvious here? Because as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that comes to mind he's done wrong, I'm sure was it the Leicester game? Him and Xhaka made a bit of a mistake. There was a bit of a communication error that cost us a goal. I might have got the game wrong, but other than that, I think his performance has been pretty solid, and I don't understand why he's not getting minutes. So for me, they were the issues I had with the lineup.
Yeah. What about you, Sulz? What were you thinking?
I had my reservations. I kind of expected Willian to start. I think what Arteta did right was actually approach this game in the first half in the right manner, and I'll kind of go into why I think that. It's because Slavia Prague are a team that can approach this game in many ways. We know what they're like. They love to man mark, they love to press, and they love to make it hard and compact, for a team. They don't like to give you time. The only place where you get given time is your centre-backs, because they don't tend to mark both centre-backs. And the centre-backs, we've seen it, they were passing the ball between each other so many times in that game, and they had all the freedom in the world, which was a good approach to take, because what that then does is it allows them to kind of draw players in, make them move away from what their tactics were and disorganize them. This game was missing David Luiz more than a lot of different players, because what David Luiz would have done in this game, he would have broke that line with a pass over the top, and he would have got it down to the wing a lot quicker than a lot of these players are capable of doing. The problem is Gabriel and Holding just not good enough in terms of being ball-playing centre-backs. Gabriel's been very strange this season with some of the passing decisions he's making. My only kind of... The thing is, as much as I understood Willian playing, at half-time, I expected a change, because Slavia came into this game in the second approach I thought they would take. I thought they would come in with a deeper line. I might be completely wrong, and I might be off the ball in terms of how I thought of Slavia, but I would have thought they would have come in to counter-attack, absorb pressure, and hit us on the break, because they know we're going to come for them. But what they did was hold a high line, and this team, other than Saka, isn't good enough, because Lacazette is a turtle when he runs. He is slow. He was god-awfully slow. I swear someone on crutches runs quicker than him.
Did you see the video with the goal where the camera went too far forward and had to come back to let him catch up with the camera?
I was like, is he running? Is he? I was questioning whether he was running or not. He was god-awfully slow. I was like, go on, move. I was screaming at my TV to tell him to run. I was like, oh my God, this is actually him running. I was like, oh, for God's sake. Because I can't remember which centre-back it was, but one of the centre-backs was 5 yards behind him, and he actually caught up. I was like, oh my God. And then Lacazette decides, oh yeah, let me do the hardest thing possible and try put this top bins. For me, that's the last thing as a striker I would have done. I would have just chipped the keeper. He could have
took it around the goalkeeper. He had time to even take it around if he needed to.
Just chip the keeper.
Just with an easy chip, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like I said, I had my reservation, like I'm saying, Pepe should have played and all of this, but the chances were still created. That's the funny thing. We still created gilt-edged chances when... Yeah, basically, man was buffering. I don't know. I really, really cannot believe it. Someone needs to slap an all attribute cards on him, the pace one and a hunter card, and maybe, just maybe, the guys, him and Mertesacker should have a race, man. I would be really curious who comes out on top of that. And
Mertesacker didn't need pace, because Mertesacker had it up here, had football intelligence.
But yeah, I think the approach for me in the first half was right. Second half, I think that's where you make the change, because you now know they're definitely playing with a high line. So Martinelli, Pepe, Aubameyang, maybe they should have come on, because that for me would have firstly got us an early goal in the second half. Obviously, I don't know what Jonathan agrees or disagrees, but that team was crying for pace, because they knew Saka was the only outlet, and they really targeted that. They started to, as Saka got into the game a bit more, they started to really kind of kick him down. Even with Smith Rowe, they were kicking him down, which is a brilliant tactic to use against both of them, because the minute they start getting kicked, they lose all ability to play football. Saka, after that miss, for me, should have come off. He really should have come off, because his head was gone. He had no confidence in his ability whatsoever. That's like me when I enter an exam. I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sakes, what was the answer again? And then when I'm off the pitch, I'll be like, oh yeah, it was fucking 4, wasn't it? And that's just the way it would be. I'd be like 2 + 2. What is it in an exam? I'd be like, this is a bit tricky now. Let me work this one out. But off the pitch, I'll tell you exactly what it is. And that's what I felt like Saka after that shot. So it is what it is. But for me, the chances were created, so I can't blame the lineup.
Yeah, just I'm going to ask Jonathan about Slavia now in a sec. I suppose just quickly, my thoughts on the lineup. I think one of the topics of debate was going to be the left-back position, and people were calling for Saka left-back. I could definitely see the sense of playing Saka left-back. I didn't actually think he would. I thought he'd go with Cedric, and I know he did in the end. I didn't think he'd go with Saka. But yeah, again, look, as I always say, hindsight is a beautiful thing, and we can look back now and say maybe, he could have played Pepe. I was seeing Holly gave a shout out there. Pepe should have started. Yeah, definitely looking back at what he did in the final couple of minutes when he came on, definitely he should have played. Saka could have played even over on the left hand side. I think the difference in pace was quite evident, and I think early on, you could see our game plan was just lump the ball over the top, look for Bukayo Saka, and just get him to take on the fullback. And he was having success with it. We just couldn't do it on the opposite side of the pitch because, again, Willian is another player himself, and I think himself and Lacazette have loaded about 30%, and then that's about it. Like the only thing slower than my internet connection most of the time is those two players. So it's pretty shocking. In terms of the rest of the team, yeah, I guess it did catch me off guard a little bit with Aubameyang because, again, I think we've all said for the longest time he needs to be dropped. And now he seems to have dropped him for the most important game. And again, you look back in hindsight and say, you know what, we actually could have done with Aubameyang tonight, which is, it's kind of a funny one to look back at it now. Other than that, as Scott was saying, Pablo Mari, I can only presume the only reason Pablo Mari doesn't get to play is because he's the one and only man at the club who's actually better looking than Arteta, and Arteta clearly has issue with it, and he just won't put him on the pitch. Other than that, I cannot for the life of me understand why that guy doesn't get to play football. I really can't, because I can't remember him really doing anything wrong. And I know we joked previously that, he has, for people who weren't aware, he does have a clause in his Arsenal contract, part of the deal with Arsenal Flamengo, is that I think it was 4 million we paid up front. For every 10 appearances, we pay $1 million, up to, I think, a max of 12 million. And I know he was about to hit that first installment. Remember, he played a handful of games, and himself and Holden were playing very well together. And he hit 9 games, and then he got this mystery muscle injury, which ruled him out for about 2 months. And we never saw him. And we've hardly seen him back in the side again. And I'm starting to wonder now, is there another clause in there that if he plays a handful more games between now and the end of the season, maybe we owe another couple of quid? And Arsenal being Arsenal and our owners being our owners, it would not surprise me at all if there's some clause in there that means we have to fork out a couple of quid so this guy is not playing football.
Classic Arsenal.
For the life of me, I just can't understand. But Jonathan, again, like I said, unfortunately, we couldn't get the initial episode going where I was going to get a breakdown of who was likely to come in and play. But again, like I said, I had seen you did say, early in the day, it was kind of the best you could have put together. But how strong in reality, and I'm sure, look, you work with these guys and you know that they're capable players in their own right. But in terms of what Slavia were missing, was this a missed opportunity for Arsenal on paper when you look at that lineup in comparison to what we could be facing in the second leg?
Well, I think the key for us was that we were lacking centre-backs. So Tomáš Holeš, the guy who actually scored the goal, I think that was only the second time he'd ever played centre-back in his life. So you can kind of imagine the relief that we had. I mean, to be honest, in that situation, I thought Holeš was probably one of the best players on the pitch. And I think when you've got a player like David Zuma, who I think is 20 years old next to him, quite inexperienced. So considering we've had a defensive pairing of those guys together for the first time, I think we did pretty well. So So I think that was probably the biggest weakness in the team. And then that means usually Holeš is like a number 6 or like a dynamic midfielder. So we did miss that dynamism in the centre of the park. And I think that probably played a big part in the fact that we couldn't really press as we wanted to. We didn't quite have that intensity in the press that I was expecting. Promadai in midfield's a good player, but he doesn't give that kind of energy that Holeš would give. So the centre of the defence was probably the weakest part. If you notice in the second half, we put Oscar Dorley, we put him as like a holding midfielder to get a bit more control. And apart from the mistake that led to the Lacazette chance, he did pretty well, just to settle things down. I think like one of the big parts of the game for us was the fact that we were able to bring on players who added more energy and kind of allowed us to maintain our levels. So the guys that we brought on, so like Petr Ševčík, he came on at half time, and Ondrej Linga in the midfield, like they really gave us a lot of impetus going forward. And obviously we had like Jan Kupta, who had the chance towards the end as well, and he's our number 1 striker. He usually plays, and he's one of our top scorers this season. So to bring the likes of him onto the pitch obviously gave us a bit of momentum towards the end, just to get that equaliser.
Yeah, you haven't exactly filled me with confidence going into the second leg now, telling me that the guy who scored your goal, it was literally a makeshift centre back playing next to a young guy who's inexperienced as centre back, and your best goal scorer was on the bench. So I was trying to take some kind of comfort out of sort of the last maybe 12 to 15 minutes. It seemed as though Arteta, as we've said plenty of times in the past, he got this one wrong. And look, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on Arteta. Maybe the lineup wasn't exactly wrong, but look, the players just don't finish their chances. We've seen it time and time again. We seem to be having this conversation almost every game about missed opportunities, and definitely for me, I think this was a missed opportunity in plenty of senses. As you said, a makeshift kind of defensive partnership, your best goal scorer on the bench. And what I have in the back of my mind as well, if I am correct, Slavia haven't lost at home against anybody all season. And whether that be domestically or in Europa, I don't think Slavia have actually lost a game at home. So again, Arsenal being Arsenal, Scott, are you expecting Arsenal are going to be that side that can beat Slavia, give them their first home defeat of the season?
Do you know what it is? It's the $1 million question, isn't it? And I think my opinion on this is probably going to change by the hour between now and next week, honestly. There is a part of me that thinks, surely the season isn't going to end like this. There's that as much as like anybody, I can be a bit downbeat and negative at times. And, I still have just that little bit of hope. And we always say it's the hope that kills you. You said it to me yesterday on the fan cam. And there's just that little bit of hope. I don't know. Part of me feels as though we're due a good performance somewhere. And one thing I'll say about Arteta is every time it feels like he's on the brink, and I don't necessarily mean a brink of being sacked, because I know that's key topic of conversation today. I don't genuinely believe he's getting sacked anytime soon, regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season. But as far as losing the majority of the fan base, I've seen a lot of comments this week, today, and people are pretty much putting their flag and saying, this is where I am. If this happens on that day, this is what I am. And I think, I just think he's going to somehow pull it out. I know it makes no sense. I know that Prague are going to be stronger, much stronger. I think they were. I don't feel we saw the true Prague last night, but there's just a little part of me just feels somehow we're going to scrape through. It could be extra time. It could be penalties. One thing for sure, it's going to be a stressful night, whatever happens.
It wouldn't be an Arsenal game without some element of stress. I
gained a few new greys last night, so there'll be a few more next Thursday, honestly.
Oh my God, I can't believe any of us have hair left with this club.
They've taken mine. Stop bragging. I gotta go Turkey, Masood.
Sulz will have no hair left in his beard next week. But yeah, for anyone watching, this does go out as an audio podcast as well. So I should say for anybody who's listening, I've just put up on screen there. Yeah, Slavia 37 games. They set a Czech league record, unbeaten in the league for more than a year. And that's something we briefly spoke about, Jonathan, just before we went live. This is kind of, I guess, the stigma that surrounds a game like this. Coming in, everybody looks at a tie like this and says, well, okay, Slavia, yeah, they beat Rangers, yeah, they beat Leicester, but come on, this is Arsenal, Premier League, should be a top 6 side. I know they're not on the best of form this season, but we've got Aubameyang, we've got Pepe, we've got these players, we've got Thomas Partey, yeah, they'll give us a game, but we should go through. We're the big side. But this is, I think, the factor that people don't take into consideration. And I think this is where, these European games don't get the respect that they should. This stage in a European competition, whether it be the Europa League or the Champions League, I mean, a side is there for a reason. And looking at that, okay, it's a term I hate. And I know I use it myself, but it's a term that drives me mad. But it's used time and time again. I think it's almost to have a dig at Arsenal by a section of our own fan bases when we say, well, on paper, we should be a top 4 side, or on paper we should be a top 6 side. Now, we saw on paper last night we should have been the team that won that game, but paper and reality are very, very different things. Now, if you want to get technical, on paper, Slavia Prague were the form team coming into that. And on paper, Slavia Prague are the side running away with their league domestically. They're also the side on paper who, as I said, haven't been beaten at home in over a year. As you can see from the screenshot there, 37 games unbeaten. So on paper, Arsenal were the side sitting in 10th place in their division. So I think this is what people completely overlook coming into this. Like, just because a side plays in a different league or division that doesn't quite get the same respect as the likes of the Premier League, you definitely can't write a side like that off. And Jonathan, like, you can definitely attest to the mentality and the winning culture around Slavia, and like how much of a difference does that make in terms of belief for a side like Slavia, who I can imagine Slavia feed off this whole, underdog kind of tag coming into a game like this against Arsenal and would really have something to prove.
Yeah, for sure. I think mentally we're one of the toughest teams around. Obviously, we got first-hand experience of that last night. When you build that kind of run, when you put that run together, then that obviously makes you really determined to keep that run. I think the last home game we lost was actually against Inter Milan or Barcelona, I think. So yeah, that was it was like 18 months ago or something. So I think that proves everything really. And for example, on Sunday, we played a league match and our goalkeeper got sent off after 15 minutes, and we managed to hold on to a 0-0 draw away from home. And just to keep that record going, it just keeps that kind of determination that we don't want to be beaten. We want to keep that record. And yeah, it builds a lot of confidence in our play. And it was interesting what you said about, on paper. And I think a big reason why you guys think, or a lot of Arsenal fans think, that on paper you're the better team is it's about exposure, I think. And a lot of Premier League players get that exposure every week. Everyone watches the Premier League, but no one watches the Czech League. And actually, if you watch a lot of our players in the Czech League, then they're good football players. We win for a reason, and we're in the Champions League for a reason, and we're in the quarterfinals of the Europa League for a reason. The only reason why people don't really respect some of our players is that they just don't know about them. We don't get that exposure. So for us, it's obviously one of the big positives about being in Europe is that we get that exposure to our players. And, okay, we're probably not at a stage where we can keep hold of players. And, if big clubs do come looking for our players, then then obviously we're going to have to let them go probably. But this gives us a good opportunity to put those players on the shop window and really show what we can do. And I think like when we talk about the racism incident and the bad press over the last 2 weeks, I think it's really galvanized the dressing room where you've got the whole world against us. So let's go out there and let the football do the talking. And I think that's also that siege mentality. And as we talked about before we came on air, as a Stoke fan, I know that very well, from the Premier League, is that when everyone's against you, when everyone's criticising you, that makes you even more determined. And I think, as I said, we got an example of that last night that, 93rd minute, looks like the game's finished and we didn't give up. And, we got ourselves what could be a really important goal. So, I do think that mentality is really crucial. And when you've built that run, obviously you're going to get a lot of confidence from it.
Yeah, brilliantly said. Scott, yeah, look, sort of, I guess, pretend.
Can you take that off the screen, please? I don't want to see this. Like,
I know, it's so bad.
Anthony, can you make it bigger, please, mate? Can you make it bigger? I can't see it, mate. I can't see it.
I was starting to like this guy, but I'm done. He's a Stoke fan, and then he comes out with stuff like that.
Yeah,
Anthony, it was good being on, mate. I'm gonna have to head off now.
I think unfortunately, as we touched on things early in the podcast, there's certain things we can't brush under the mat and pretend that they're going on. And unfortunately, Arsenal's what should I say, being shit at football is something unfortunately we can't exactly run away from and pretend doesn't happen. Unfortunately, and actually just give a shout out to everyone in the chats there. I see that there's a drinking game going on in the chats being organised for every time I say on paper. So on paper. So enjoy the hangover, lads. But so yeah, sorry, I see a comment there. I'm upsetting everybody. Well, look,
they should check out your fan cam last night. I think between us we said on paper a fair few times as well.
You know what? This could be. We could get a whole new audience here now. People going, the on paper.
No, I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you, Anthony, what we need to do. We need to have Republic of Arsenal bingo. So you get your regular guests on and find out what everyone's like quotes and what then, and everyone can play bingo in the chat. You
know what? I wouldn't be a true Irishman if I wasn't promoting people getting drunk, though. So I have to. It's in my blood. It just has to be done. Although tonight I am on the water. In fairness, now, but on paper I'm on the water. So yeah, more shots. But Scott. Again, look, we'll kind of stay on this whole this topic. I will just take that off screen just as not to distract you. But look, this is the difference in the mentality. I sort of felt it, and I said this to Jonathan just before we started. I sort of felt, even at 1-0, and I said this to you also last night, Scott, on your own channel. At 1-0, I sort of felt, that just papered over the cracks. I didn't think that was a great result. And again, I'll put my hand up. Maybe that was me being a bit disrespectful to Slavia. Again, being a little bit... what would I say, ignorant of, how good a side they actually were. Because as Jonathan said, they don't get the exposure. And I'm not going to pretend that, I did an awful lot of, watching games prior to, kind of Rangers and Leicester City and that. So, yeah, again, on paper, I was thinking 1-0 possibly wasn't the best result. Now, in hindsight, it would have been a fantastic result. But, this is the difference in mentality, difference in mindset. We have a 1-0 lead approaching the 90th minute. We talked about this over and over again. It seems to be the same things coming up nearly every show we do, where we're talking about the importance of, shutting up shop and, really being careful of what you're doing and really just, see the game out. And this is where we lack the leaders and the organisers and the guys that are there to say, look, nobody do anything stupid. We saw a comment afterward from Granit Xhaka, having a go at his teammates saying, just clear the ball, just clear it. But I can't understand for the life of me how, again, now Jonathan, maybe you might disagree with me, but I thought for the best part of 90 minutes, Arsenal were on top of that game. And then for the final 4 minutes, which are arguably the most important 4 minutes of the game, we completely decide, right, we're going to sit back. We're just going to allow Slavia to have the ball, let them attack us. The job is done. We got our goal. We got ourselves out of jail 5 minutes from the end. Yeah, well done, lads. We got the goal. Right, we set ourselves up now going into the second leg. And what happens? The never say die attitude of one side, comes out in the 93rd minute. And this is the difference. This is, as Jonathan said, this team they're spurred up, they're geared up. That was a disgusting word I used there. I shouldn't have said spurred up. Forget I said that. So more shots on paper. So look, this is the difference. The mentality difference. Like in comparison to Arsenal, like how does Arteta change this? Like what does he need to do? And again, this is probably $1 million question as well. And if you have the answer, please do send it Arteta's way. What needs to change?
I just think that, they do say that you're most vulnerable just after you've scored. And, I think I mentioned it earlier, I think on one of my streams, I don't know which one, I've done so many, but I know last night wasn't a defeat, but it might as well been. It's certainly how it always feels in any kind of game where you're winning and you don't actually get the win. And certainly, conceding the away goal. And it just reminded me, and I said to you last night, was that it reminded me of the latter Wenger days, that soft underbelly that we always got accused of. And ironically, over the last 6 months, those that are very pro Arteta have used that as one of the things they feel as though it's been changed at the club. They've been using, I say they because I'm actually in neither camp. I'm just that annoying guy in the middle. But, I hear that quite a lot as though, look at the fight back against West Ham. They're showing courage. They're showing grit. The old Arsenal wouldn't do that. But listen, you put yourself in those positions, and that's not this. It's not a way. It's not sustainable. You're not going to achieve anything in putting yourself, getting behind. Early for me, one of the areas we've got to improve, and going back to your question, is that we need to get off to faster starts. When was the last time you can remember Arsenal come out the blocks and just dominate the first 20 minutes? I know it's happened. I just can't remember when, but there was a period where, and I saw a stat, I think it was, I definitely saw it yesterday. I think it's in 7 of the last 8 or 5 in the last 6. It's one of those. We've conceded first. So if you're going to concede first, you're always giving yourself a mountain to climb. Now, I know that didn't happen last night, but we need to be, next week, if we're going to get a result, if we're going to turn this round, Arteta's got to set up and he's got to get the guys fired up. And I don't know, if he had the answer to that question, he would have already done it. The lineup for me, and I know we've touched on sort of we are ignorant, I think is the word we're looking for as fans, when we assume we're bigger or better than any other team, purely because we don't know the other team. And I'm as guilty as anybody there. I hold my hands up. I really am. Unless you're one of these people that watches these other teams and you watch that league, just looking at a few stats online and reading a few bits and pieces is not enough to judge another team. But for that, as fans, that's not our job. That's Arteta's job. He needs to make sure that he knows the opposition. I read his quotes earlier on his press conference about Sheffield United this week, and he said, "Oh, I've seen them, and their performances, and they're a really strong team." And I'm like, "Who are you kidding? Seriously?" Like, I don't genuinely believe Arteta has been scouting Sheffield United at all, and I don't blame him if he hasn't, because it's realistically the game doesn't mean anything to us, and his attention shouldn't have been on Sheffield United. And so when you hear quotes like that, you do wonder to yourself, well, are you really, that's just a bit of a blag. It's easy to give teams credit, but you've got to do your due diligence as a manager. You've got to actually find out the opposition, find out their weaknesses. How can we, exploit those weaknesses, but don't take your eye off the ball. And last night for me, somewhere along the line, the players were just slow out the blocks yet again. And what I'm finding, and I don't know if anybody in the chat agrees, but for me, I'm doing these watch-alongs, I'm noticing that we're so slow starting. And last night, I think the first 5 to 10 minutes, it felt as though Slavia had more of the ball. They were, controlling the first 5 to 10. And then gradually we just grow, we just ease into it. But quite often, by the time we get our, time we stretched and we're ready and we're out and we're warmed up, we're already either 1-0 down because we've made a mistake, or we've got no control in the game, and you're kind of holding on for half time, and then we as fans are sitting there going, right, come on, let's get out and get stuck in the second half. And next week, I digress somewhat, but in order to answer your question, if we want to win next week, we've got to get off to a quick start. It doesn't necessarily mean we need to score within the first 10 minutes. In a way, and again, I go back to Arteta's press conference. Out of a lot of the gumph, he did talk a lot of crap tonight, but there was some good points in there. One of the things he mentioned was, well, it's quite simple. We've got to go there and we've got to win. Because with the 1-0, if we took 1-0 in last night, and don't get me wrong, guys, like I would have happily took the 1-0, obviously, right? But you go there for 1-0, and there will be people thinking, well, what's he going to do? Is he going to try and hold it? Is he going to sit on the lead? Because when you do that, you invite the pressure on. Invariably, you'll finally concede. And then at that point, it's not always easy to change the momentum round. We're going into that next week. We need a minimum of a goal. We know that. He knows that. So he's got to set up an attacking team. And the reality is, if we do concede first, it's not the end of the world, really, because we still need to score. The tie isn't going to change massively if they score first. The difference is going to mean that, okay, it's going to be a long night because we may be looking at extra time. But you've got to go there saying, look, we've got to get the goal. Okay, it hasn't got to be in the first 10 minutes, but let's put them under pressure. Let's enforce our game onto them, and let's see if they can handle it.
Yeah, that's it. Fair point. This slow start. As you were talking about it there, you're saying that you can't remember the last time we kind of started, like really came out of the blocks. The last I can remember was against Tottenham, and yet we still went the goal down. We just this whole.
Do you know what it is, Anthony and Scott? I don't think it's we start slow against Slavia yet to a degree because they had more of the ball. If they took their chances, we'd be having a different conversation. We would have said, you know what, actually, we've come out of the blocks a bit. We've kind of approached the game in the right manner. The problem is we do create a lot of chances in the first half. We just don't want to take them for whatever reason. Wolves, we had 4 or 5 chances. Leicester, 4 or 5 chances. Even in this game, we had 2 or 3 chances. At Tottenham, we had multiple chances to take the lead first. That's why I kind of do have to disagree because yes, we were a little bit shaky, but that's always going to happen in a European game. That's just part of the problem is, right, as a Premier League team, we're not very tactically outfitted. And that's the one thing with Premier League. Premier League is just a very high intensity. Whoever has more heart, and obviously now it's become a bit more, okay, with Pep Guardiola, Klopp and Wenger, with the introduction of foreign managers, it is starting to become a tactically outlaid team. But traditionally, we've always been a league who have just heart, passion, and intensity. And that's why we used to do differently. Whereas in Europe, it's very tactically sort of driven. Everything is methodical. Everything is planned out. Everything's about, look, this is the system. This is the structure. This is what we want to play. And in a lot of European teams, what you'll find is even in the youth systems, that same system and that same ideology is implemented throughout that club. Hence why you don't really see a lot of European giants die really quickly, because it's like if you look at Barcelona, Real Madrid, when you look at the likes of Inter Milan, AC Milan, Juventus, it's like for like people coming in to replace the managers. That's why you don't see the demise. And the problem that we've had, and even when Scott was talking about mentalities, the problem is that's 17 years in the making. After the Invincible, our mentality just went. This club started to become bottle jobs from that moment onwards. The Invincible for me is a curse that this club made, because we've become arrogant, we've become delusional that we're a big club anymore, and it's a hard reality. It's a harsh reality, but we are, even on paper, we are a mid-table club because we don't really have players who have the bottle when it really matters. Our form this season, even last season, if you look at it, even under Emery's first season, you know, when we came 5th, all he needed to do was stop being stupid and we would have been top 14. What he decided to do was, I don't even know what he was trying to do, putting Torreira as a number 10, starting to play Carl Jenkinson, Chambers in a CDM position. All he needed to do was play one game, just full squad, and we would have been top 4. Then obviously Arteta's come in, obviously, with the abysmal sort of season that Unai Emery had. Granted, not really his fault. He just lost the dressing room. He kind of lost respect from the fans and the players. And then obviously Arteta's had COVID to deal with. He had a few games before and then obviously got COVID himself, and then the whole lockdown and football stopped in Europe and everything. So obviously he's not been able to get that new manager's bounce. But then when we start to look at what's happening this season in terms of mentality, we see it and then we don't see it. And that's part of the problem where not enough times am I seeing that passion that Xhaka showed. I'm not seeing enough times where Bellerin was showing that sort of, when he gave that death stare at the player. It's like, are you being for real? You want to swap shirts? I'm going to drop you. I'm going to literally come here. I'm going to kick the shit out of you. Why are you talking to me? And then you see Nicola Pepe, who got the goal. Oh, yeah, happily, yeah, take my shirt. We've just drawn to you. The fans are definitely happy with us. Oh, yeah, here you go. Have my shirt. Yeah, let's hug it out. And I'm like, this is the problem. There's players who... The problem is, right, it's like we do a raffle in the dressing room. Who's going to be the shit today? Who wants to be the shit player today? Because it was Dani Ceballos on the weekend. Today it's Party. Next week it'll be Aubameyang, because his name would have been drawn out the cup. And that's the problem. We always have someone crucial that's bottling it. Party couldn't make a 3-yard pass.
The thing is you're quite often, this isn't just in a football team, this is in the walks of life. You are often a product of your environment. If you work, because they are working, okay, if you work with substandard people, your standards come down. And some could say that Party's levels, and we've yet to see. Now, there may be multiple reasons for that. It could be the injury, it could be adapting to the league. Somebody mentioned on the fan cams last night that he's always seems to be gassed. He's out of energy after X amount of minutes. Now, that's fine in the Premier League, but that was Europa League. That wasn't a fast-paced game. Now, what I would say is that if you've got, players can come into Arsenal with great reputations, but is it the quality around them that's bringing their levels down? Because when you talk about the invincible Sulz previously, they were always angry. They're always in fights in the dressing room. You hear the stories. They were all leaders, they're all captains in their own right, but they would not accept low standards from each other. And if anybody didn't perform on the day that they weren't happy with, they'd have them up in that dressing room. Can you tell me that you think that any players in our squad, and probably going back a number of years, are the kind of player that would, perhaps Tierney, maybe, if he gets the authority as captain at some point, but outside of that, mediocrity is just accepted at the club?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the problem is, right, these players have no self-respect, number one. I don't see any of them with any ounce of self-respect. There's a very few. And the problem is, right, if I name some of them, people are going to go into absolute meltdown, because Xhaka is one of them. He does have a lot of self-pride. And he thinks of himself to be one of the... Look, it can be a detriment, but it's a quality that a lot of players, especially at that level, need. When you look at Aubameyang, for example, after a miss, he'll smile, he'll laugh. Lacazette does have self-pride, but I just don't know what he does sometimes. Like, his decision-making sometimes off, and that's part of the problem. When the kids are coming in, right, when the youth players and your sort of least experienced players are coming in and showing you up, and that's not really motivating you, there is a big problem that you have to address yourself. Arteta cannot fix that. Unfortunately, that is something which he can't do. And I'm telling you, if this was in the era of the Invincibles, Aubameyang wouldn't be at this club. Not a chance. Would the likes of Xhaka wouldn't be at the club, Bellerin, they would have shipped him off. Like, first thing, they would have picked him up. All of those players would have picked him up and just dashed him somewhere and just left him and be like, we don't fucking know where we left him. They wouldn't even drop him off at a club. Like, he wouldn't even be respected to go drop off at a club. Yeah, Aubameyang, if he acts the way he is right now, would be the same. They'll just drop him off somewhere, like at a shopping mall or something, and be like, fuck it, mate. We can't even be asked giving you to a club because you're that bad. We don't even want our names representing you with that club.
The thing is with sorry to interrupt. The thing is with Aubameyang is we're obviously coming from different generations, right? Is that for me, even in Aubameyang's prime, he can't lace Henry's boots. He really can't, because he doesn't. And unfortunately, I know some people in the chat are a lot younger than me. So although there's players before my generation, I know a little bit about. I've seen video clips, I've heard the stories. But unless you grow up and you're fortunate enough to have watched week in, week out these players, and I'm fortunate enough that I was at a great age for the Invincibles, so I remember it very clearly, and I remember Henry. I feel as though a fan base, we've always been so desperate. I mean, I've always had an issue of him being number 14. I mean, for me, the 14 shirt should have been retired. You don't need the 14 shirt. Newcastle retired the number 9, I think, if I might be not wrong. The 14 shirt should have been retired. Walcott picked it up as if, I'm going to be the new Henry. Well, no, you're not. None of you are ever good. You don't be the new Henry. Be the first Theo Walcott. Be the first whoever. And so that shirt, that legacy of Henry went to Walcott, and then Aubameyang come in and went, I want the 14. I mean, that's an ego thing. Why did he want the 14? Are you coming in saying, I want the 14 because I know that there was a player who was the DBs years ago, and I want to be like him? Now that's great, but the reality is he's not, and he never will be.
I think it's the same reason Aubameyang wanted the captain's armband, because it was the cool thing, wasn't it? Having the cool shirt, the cool number 14 and that. But lads, just kind of to go back to the game itself, we'll just kind of spend another couple of minutes. Like, so I appreciate it's getting late and that. And I'd say everybody in the chat is probably drunk at this stage for all the times I said on paper, so they probably need to go to bed pretty soon. But kind of looking towards the second leg, and sort of to get Jonathan's sort of perspective as a coach yourself, Jonathan, like, we know that it's probably going to be a different affair in the second leg. Arteta showed me something in the last kind of maybe 12 to 15 minutes. He brought on players that we were all screaming for. I think we were all almost putting our foot through the TV for Gabriel Martinelli to come on. Even it got to the point where I even wanted Aubameyang and that to come on. Pepe came on, so definitely it changed the dynamic of the game for the last couple of minutes. So I would like to think Arteta saw something in that last maybe 12 to 15 minutes to sort of say, okay, I have a different idea of how I'm going to approach the second leg. But from your kind of perspective as a coach as well, we know that Slavia were missing a couple of key players. What did you see kind of from Arsenal that, if you had your way, what would you be kind of instructing the Slavia players to do? What kind of weaknesses do you think you could exploit in the second leg? And where do you think you can really get at Arsenal? And then I suppose if you kind of give me your idea of who's going to go through, what way do you see the second leg playing out, and who's going to advance?
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think that we gave Arsenal too much respect, especially in the first half. I think some of our lads were a little bit overawed by the occasion. One of the things that you probably noticed is that when we were in possession, we weren't very, very relaxed in possession. We wouldn't say we panicked, but we didn't really have an idea of what to do with the ball when we had it. And I think that a big part of that is that we play against inferior opposition at lower tempos at the weekend, and then we come and play Arsenal at the Emirates. It's different. Premier League football, you've probably got 2 or 3 seconds, 1 or 2 touches. In the Czech League, you've got 3, 4, 5 touches. So I think that's going to be something that we probably need to look at in the second leg, and I think that it's something that we will look at home. We'll be a lot more confident. I think that the pitch won't be what the Arsenal players expect as well. I don't think you're going to be able to play nice football on that pitch. That's going to be a big advantage for us. I think that obviously home advantage is a big reason why we're unbeaten at home, why we have a great home record. I remember a couple of seasons ago we played Sevilla at home, and we beat them, and we basically turned it into a rugby match. We made it really uncomfortable for them. Lots of high balls. We were worried about them dominating possession, but the ball spent the whole time in the air. So you can't play possession football if the ball's not on the floor. So I think, I'm not saying that we'll do that this time, but as an example, we're quite versatile in that kind of, in the way that we can play. I do think that we gave you far too much respect. I think that at home we'll press a lot higher. I think that when we have our centre-backs, hopefully Kudela will be back next week. So we'll have him back. Hopefully we'll have won our Prague derby on Sunday. We're playing against Sparta. So I do think that next week we'll have a lot more kind of confidence, and I do think that we'll press a little bit higher and put a lot more pressure on Arsenal. One of the things that really disappointed me was the fact that we didn't really press high. We didn't put you under pressure as I expected, and I think that will change in Prague next week. In terms of like the predictions going forward, I do think that Slavia will win. I'm quite confident of that. I think that now we've got that confidence. Now we know that we can play with Arsenal. We know that we can compete at that level. I think that at home it will be a completely different game. I think it will be a different prospect. And yeah, I'm quite.
I think he might have just frozen there. We'll try to get Jonathan back, but yeah, basically, Jonathan is confident of Slavia going through, and as I said, like kind of definitely, understandably so. Just mute that there. Yeah, it wouldn't be this podcast without a couple of technical issues. Jonathan, if you're backstage there and you can hear us, yeah, sorry, it's stalled a little bit. I'm just going to try to bring you back in. Sorry, Jonathan, it just kind of stalled there for the last minute or so. That's gone again. Yeah, so look, he's confident on Slavia going through, and as I said, it's understandable because they haven't lost against anybody all year. So, Sulz, how confident are you feeling coming into this one?
What the hell, man? Let's just be confident, man. Why not? It's going to be such an Arsenal thing to do, right? Just to go and win this. Like, it really is. It's just, I don't know what they'll do. It's the problem. But I'm gonna back my team. I'm gonna just say, you know what? I've seen enough in that first leg to suggest that they can get it done and they can get the job done, because we created the chances. We just weren't clinical. If we can just convert a couple of our chances and just not lose concentration, because what I feel happened was the substitutions were an imbalance to the team. Attackingly, brilliant. Defensively, we're never going to work. So that's why we conceded. And if we can just sort that out and we can get I think what we need is two pacey wingers and Lacazette. That's what I think. I think we need a Martinelli Pepe or a Saka. You know, two of them three to start. I would hope to see Pepe and maybe Saka starting. And then obviously having Lacazette still in the team just to kind of bring in a bit of, hold-up play. And then obviously Partey and Xhaka will still be the midfields, and obviously the defense kind of makes itself. I wouldn't be opposed if you tried to put Saka at left back just because he can't finish, and bring Pepe and Aubameyang and Lacazette in. And that way, at least you don't put him into situations where he needs to shoot until he learns to do that. This isn't me kind of belittling him or anything. It's just me being observant of the ability he has, but the sort of limitations he also has. And do you know what, right? I am actually fairly confident we'll go through, but that's kind of where our European run will end, because I do think Unai Emery's going to knock us out. And I'm saying it now, I don't think we're going to beat them. So if we go now, we go out in the next round, it doesn't really make a difference to me, because I genuinely don't have any hope that Unai Emery will beat Villarreal. So on that basis, I do think we'll go through. And unfortunately, good evening will knock us out.
Yeah, I joked about it earlier, Sulz. I did. I said, you know what? It would just be the most Arsenal thing to do, especially given the way this season has been and given how, a section of the fans are towards Arteta. Obviously, a lot of people saying Emery was hard done by and that. So it will be the most Arsenal thing to come back in this, go through only to get knocked out by the eventual winner, which would be Unai Emery. And Unai Emery be lifting the trophy to bring Villarreal back to Champions League football for next season, and we'll all be sitting there going, yeah, okay. But Scott, how are you feeling coming into the second leg? Did you see enough from the last few minutes, the equaliser for Slavia aside, the absolute moment of madness from Arsenal? Aside from that, did you see enough with what came on that those guys could potentially turn the tide for us in the second leg?
I think I wasn't aware until after the game that Ødegaard's injury was going to keep him out. So I was kind of like, okay, Ødegaard's back next week. I expect us to be a bit more in the final third, a little bit more direction. But apparently that's not the case. So my confidence was hit there. I just disappeared while you were talking just quickly because I was looking for a coin, because I knew you were going to ask me that question. So I was just going to flick the coin and just see which way. But ironically, couldn't find one. So there you go. bit poor in the Mason household today. But listen, I think that I think we're going to do it. I think I've got a 3-1. 3-1's what's in my head. I think Pepe is definitely going to be playing. I think he's going to start. And I just don't see, the law of averages says if we get as many opportunities as we had last night, we're going to take something. I think there's a good chance that we'll score first, contrary to probably what I was saying earlier in the stream, but this is what I believe. I think we'll score first. I think they'll equalise. And then somewhere in the line, the second half, we'll get a second, and perhaps the third will just be something like the icing on the cherry. Perhaps a counter attack. Perhaps it's right at the death of the game. But that's where my prediction is. I'll do the prediction again next week, and it will be completely different, probably knowing me. Between now and next week, I'll completely over-analyse and I'll overthink it, and I'll say something completely different. But as of today, I think we'll do it. And if I'm honest with you, regarding the Emery situation, it'd be horrible. But I tell you now, I will take that. I would happily take a 5, 6, 7-0 drubbing to Emery than get in that final and lose to United. The Twitter derby, guys, get your accounts. We'll all have to be deactivating that button if we get to that final.
Do you know what the funny thing is? That final's going to be against Roma and not United. Listen.
There's a good chance it could be. There's a good chance it could be, but it depends how much United want to go for it. I mean, they know they've got second pretty much wrapped up, and let's be honest, there's not much difference between finishing second and third. So if they want that trophy, they can start resting players and prioritising it. And if it does, that's my worst nightmare. My worst nightmare is the Chelsea repeat. Get to a final, because the last one, if you think about it, right, we got to that final and everything was riding on it for us, but we also knew at that point that we knew we was going to fall back into Europa League. It was kind of Champions League, but, worst case scenario, Europa League. Chelsea had no pressure. The tactics were wrong, poor performance, pressure got to us and we bottled it. If we're going into this and United have got absolutely no pressure, like they're going to go, look, there's a free trophy, but more importantly, we can stick it to the Arsenal. We're going into that with European football completely on the line. That's a hell of a lot of pressure. So I don't know personally if my old ticker's going to take that. If you said to me now, we're going to get to the final and win it, of course, great, I'll take that pressure. I'll take it to penalties. But listen, that's a long way to go yet. Let's get next week out of the way and we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of shouts there for penalties. And I think given the kind of the form and the stats, Arsenal haven't kept a clean sheet for, I think it's 14 games. So as well as Slavia having not lost technically at home against anyone all season. So technically we get a 1-1 draw. It means that we've lived up to form and we've conceded, and Slavia have lived up to form and technically not lost in 90 minutes. So definitely penalties could be doable for us, maybe. But yeah, look, we'll the whole Unai Emery, Villarreal, Man United in the final. Yeah, look, that's a long way away now at this stage. Yeah. And again, as I said, maybe it was my ignorance coming into the first leg. It feels a hell of a lot further away than maybe it was a week ago when I was looking at this fixture. But yeah, lads, look, we're going to wrap it up now the next couple of minutes. Just before we do, I want to give a big shout out. The chat box is absolutely hopping here tonight. I must get people doing shots in the chat more often, because there's a lot of chat, a lot of banter. It's
a who's who tonight. We've got all the big hitters in, haven't we?
They're all there. I think Arteta was in there at one stage earlier. I think he was listening to Jonathan to try get an idea of what he should be doing.
I said big surprise appearance. I thought I'd get him on for a surprise appearance.
Definitely Pablo Mari is there, so that means he's not going to be playing the second leg. I think I've seen Gabby Martinelli as well, so we're not expecting. This is why Martinelli's not playing, is because he stays up too late at night listening to my podcast, so he's not fit for a full 90 minutes. But look, big shout out to everybody that takes the time to come and listen and check it out. We really do appreciate it. Remember, before we wrap it up, do hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it already. Do take a shot, because that seems to be the theme of the night. I'm promoting, taking shots and stuff. And do check out the guys and their content. Hit the like button and that. So I really do appreciate it. I enjoyed this one. look, it wasn't quite the doom and gloom I guess I was expecting it to be. I know in a roundabout way, I think we managed to discuss the game and the tie without really discussing the game itself. We did it in a roundabout way. I think sometimes it's the easier way to do it. But yeah, look, just before we wrap up, big thanks to each and every one of you on the panel. I really do appreciate it. And just before we go, I'll just get each one of you just to give yourselves a shout out. So, Sulz, I'll start with you so you can let the people know where to follow you and check out your content.
Yeah. On YouTube, you can find me at Gunnar Sulz. On Twitter, you can find me at Let's Debate Footy. There's a lot of content coming, and there's a special interview you can go and check out. Obviously, I did this morning. A certain Anthony did feature in spirit, I should say. So yeah, you can have a look at that. It was a brilliant interview.
Yeah, it really, really was. Look, Sulz doing big things, man. Having Arsenal legend Kevin Campbell a one-on-one chat. So, look, as Sulz says, if you don't know, get to know, because this man is going absolutely nowhere apart from straight to the top. So, do check him out. He's basically my co-host and a guy who's becoming a familiar face. And we got a couple of front runners for the backup to Sulz for when Sulz moves on to Sky Sports News or BT or Arsenal manager at the rate he's going. Scott, you're becoming a regular here now. So Scott could be the heir to the throne. So yeah, look again, Scott, thanks as always. And Scott, doing big things, and let the people know, Scott, where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks. There's some big shoes to fill there. So we'll grow into those. The channel I run, the Red Cannon. I want to make it clear to anyone watching, please don't refer to me as the Red Cannon. That sometimes comes out and it's like the most cringy thing in the world. The channel's the Red Cannon. I'm just Scott. So just remember me as Scott if you can. The _Red Cannon is my Twitter handle. Search the Red Cannon on YouTube. Daily updates at the moment. I'm doing watch-alongs every game. As of last night, we started doing the fan cams. I had Anthony on. I had a few other good guest guys. Sam was in the chat earlier, was on. Dave was on. So yeah, expanding, doing new things. If you like flashy colours and the odd profanity, because I've been known to swear a little bit on time to time, then probably I'm somewhere you might want to check out. As I say, you can see behind me, I have all the colours and the graphics and whatnot. But yeah, like I say, head over if it's something you might be interested in. It'd be cool to see some new people about.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, Jonathan, just before I get you to give yourself a little shout out, I do have to apologise as Dave, a good friend of ours in the chat, he did put a question earlier. He wanted to know, are you a double pivot or a low block man? He was questioning whether the Czech football league, whether you use the same terminology as they're using in England now with low block and all this. So I'll see if I can find it here. Yeah, or maybe if he's still there, he might throw the question in there again, because, as I said, Jesus, there's some amount of comments in the chat box there. But he was asking, do you use the same terminology, double pivot and low block?
I don't know. Well, I don't speak Czech well enough, to be honest, to know. But I think, like, as a coach, obviously, any terminology usually, it does carry over into different languages. And football's a universal language, right? So yeah, we use stuff like that. We try not to. Some of them are quite cringy, aren't they? They're overused, but we use some of them for sure.
Yeah. Some things like the likes of on paper definitely gets used far too much.
We don't use that one.
next training session for Jonathan. On paper, right? This is what I want you to get. On paper, this is what.
or the other one I'm becoming famous for, or infamous for at this stage, is foot off the gas. So that's another one I've been told I need to. Good one. But look, Jonathan, I really do appreciate. I understand you're very, very busy as well, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. And again, I know you are ahead of us as well. So look, a massive, massive thanks. It was great having you on, especially to get your perspective and your insights. So look, just before you go, give yourself a shout out there, and I suppose, like, again, maybe another plug. We all know you're with Slavia and that, but maybe another little plug for the Prague Raptors, because as I said, I'm going to keep telling people, check out the kits as well, because those kits are sick. I have to get my hands on one of those kits.
Yeah, for sure. So I would like to plug the Prague Raptors. So it's at Prague Raptors, and that's the Twitter handle. I think we're on other platforms as well. To be honest, I'm not really a social media kind of person. I don't have a YouTube channel or anything like that. Use Twitter quite a lot, and you can catch me at Johnny Potter 87 on Twitter, and posting anything between Slavia, Stoke, a little bit of analysis from time to time, and a little bit of coaching stuff. So you can follow me over there. One thing I did notice, actually, Sulz, you said that you interviewed Kevin Campbell. As a Stoke fan, we're quite interested in Kevin Campbell because we've got his son Tyrese at the moment. He's actually one of our superstars. Yeah, he's one of our superstars at Stoke. So we're big fans of Kevin Campbell and Tyrese Campbell. So yeah, he's a great guy as well, Kevin Campbell. I've seen some interviews, and so it's a nice little connection that we have.
Yeah, so funny. Honestly, it was one. You know what? Yeah, I was like, oh my god, I've got to do this interview tomorrow with Kevin Campbell. I was like, yeah, Arsenal just had to do this, didn't they? But then I woke up, he was just having a proper blast and laugh about it. Yeah, now his kid is brilliant, man. Honestly, you've got a star on your hands there.
Yeah, for sure. He got injured, but I think he's going to be a big star in the future.
100%. I agree.
Hey, Sulz, you know that feeling of butterflies you got when you knew you were interviewing Kevin Campbell? That's the feeling I get every time you come on this stream. You still give me the butterflies, the excitement, and the bigger you're getting, the more starstruck I become every time we have you on the stream. But yeah, lads, as I said, it's it was a fun one tonight. And look, this is why I like doing these, because it does help. It helps to kind of clear your head. And actually, I never gave my prediction just before I finished. I'll give my prediction. Are we going through? Oh, do you know what? I want to try end it on a high. I want to try end it on a high for Arsenal fans. So I gotta be positive. I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna say how we're gonna do it, but look, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I have to promote, positivity for Arsenal. I think we need all the positivity we can possibly get. So yeah, I'm not going to say how we do it. Maybe a penalty shootout, something like that. As I said, we'll stay true to form. We'll concede. Slavia won't lose at home in 90 minutes. And then look, miracles do happen. All the stars may align. Arsenal may find themselves going through, only to be dumped out by Unai Emery's team. So hey, look, we'll see what happens. But again, look, big shout out everybody that came on. I really appreciate your time as always. And big shout out to everyone in the chats. Again, check the lads out. Like, share, subscribe. See you all later.
Cheers.